Hey everyone, welcome back to the Ameta Academy Friday Lives. Today we're covering something a little different, covert surveillance, because not every situation calls for a visible camera. Sometimes the best camera is the one that nobody notices, and that's exactly where pinhole cameras come in. Let's start with what this actually is and what makes it different. Next slide. So, what you're looking at here is an AI-based pinhole camera. It's small but very intentional in design. This lens is designed to be installed inside walls, ceilings, furniture, and even shelving. So, instead of a visible security camera, this blends into the environment. But here's the important part. This is not a gadget camera. You're still getting the AI-based professional system behind it. You heard it right. Like any other AI-based camera, it works on an AI-based NVR, VMS, and mobile app. Now, let's break down from a future standpoint. Next slide, please. So, from a core spec perspective, you've got 5 megapixel resolution, so image quality is still solid. A 2.0 millimeter fixed lens designed for close range controlled environments. And then you've got something really important here, external microphone support. This gives you flexibility. You can deploy video only or video plus audio, depending on the application. And that decision should always be intentional. Now, let's look at how this actually shows up in real projects. Next slide. So, these are actual projects completed by our installer partners. First, a police station investigation room. In this case, the installer deployed the pinhole camera with an external mic. So now the system is capturing visual behavior and audio interaction. This is critical environments where documentation needs to be accurate and complete. Second, a lawyer's office, specifically a deposition room. Again, same setup. Covert camera, external mic. The goal here was to capture a clean, unbiased record of what's happening in the room without the presence of a visible camera influencing behavior. Now, the third one is a little different, retail. This was for internal theft and loss prevention. No microphone in this case, just covert video monitoring. Because the objective here wasn't recording conversation, it was recording behavior for internal investigation. So what you're seeing here is the same camera platform used in completely different ways, based all on the needs of the project, which honestly is the way to go about any CCTV install. Now, before we go any further, there's an important responsibility that comes with deploying cameras like this. Next slide. With covert surveillance, how you use the camera matters just as much as the camera itself. Covert cameras are powerful, but they should be always used with intention and within legal boundaries. First, always follow local, state, and federal laws, especially when it comes down to audio recording. Some states require one-party consent. Others require all-party consent. So, if you're using an external mic, you need to be clear on that. Second, avoid private areas, bathrooms, changing rooms, or anywhere there's an expectation of privacy. Third, make sure your customer understands how the system is being used. You're not just installing hardware, you also have to guide for proper use. And when in doubt, involve legal guidance. All right, now that we covered that, let's get back into why this camera actually matters. Next slide. Most cameras are designed to be seen, and that's great for deterrence. But sometimes visibility is the problem. People behave differently when they know they're being watched, and that's exactly what covert solves. You're capturing natural, unfiltered behavior. And that matters in investigations, internal reviews, sensitive environments. As you saw in the real project examples, all those scenarios required covert surveillance, and so AI-based pinhole camera was the right choice for those installs. And the bottom line, this camera is not a replacement for your standard cameras. It's a specialized tool to be deployed in the right places the right way. So, how do you actually deploy this in the right way at the right places? Next slide. Three things to keep in mind. First, match the use case. Ask yourself, is it necessary to observe natural behavior in this situation? If the answer is yes, then this is the right camera. Do we want to influence what's happening? If the answer is no, then use this camera. Keep in mind, if you use it in the wrong scenario, it doesn't really add value. Second, decide on audio early, because once you decide to include audio, everything changes. You need to think about mic placement, wiring, how you're actually capturing clear sound. Make that decision during the project design, now, not at the time of the install. And finally, the third thing to consider is placement. Because when it all comes down to placement, this is where most installs either work really well or completely miss the mark. With pinhole cameras, you're not just mounting a device, you're designing what the camera sees without being noticed. The common placement area is walls, small openings in a drywall, behind panels, or inside fixtures. This is the most controlled and clean setup. You can aim directly at desks, seating area, interaction zones. Second placement area, ceilings, especially drop ceilings. This works well when you want a top-down angle without making it too obvious. This is good for office investigation rooms, retail aisles. Third, think furniture. This is where it gets interesting. Inside, cabinets, shelves, counters, desks. Perfect for when you want to capture close range interactions. Or in retail environments, shelving and displays are very common in this scenario, especially for cashier areas, high risk product zones, employee only zones, because it blends naturally into the environment. And then sometimes it's about using what's already there, behind objects, inside existing structures, or integrated into the environment itself. So, with pinhole cameras, the question is not just where can I install it? It's what am I trying to capture and how do I capture it naturally? So before you install, always define the objective first. Then choose the placement that supports it. So, to summarize, walls for control, ceilings for coverage, furniture for proximity, and always match the placement to the purpose. Let's wrap this up. Next slide. AI-based pinhole camera is not about replacing your existing system. It's about adding a capability that most systems do not have. Covert surveillance allows you to observe naturally, capture real behavior, operate in sensitive environments. And when used correctly within legal boundaries, it becomes a very powerful tool. All right, now I'm going to hand it over to my guy Zach for Tech Squad. Zach?
Hey, Austin, thank you for that. So we'll be moving over to our live camera demo with this Pinhole covert camera, and we'll be covering the different AI that's on it, how to set it up, the best placement, and also some tips for installers when using this camera. So as you can see here on our screen, we do have the camera up in our showroom. This is a live image. So what we'll do first is we'll go into our remote setting, and then from here we can go to event settings. And you can see that this pinhole camera, while it is very small in size, it does have the full array of our AI features. So everything from face detection, human and vehicle, license plate detection, line crossing, perimeter, loitering, everything that we offer on our main cameras, like our 8 megapixel fixed lens, this pinhole camera also does support the same AI. So we'll start off first with face detection. So this camera is capable of doing face detection. So if you're using one of our 16 channel or above NVRs, you can also incorporate that with face recognition. So any faces that are captured from this camera using the AI, it'll be stored into the NVR's database, and then you can do face recognition on that point. So this could be used for retail theft, as long as the camera is placed correctly at appropriate height. If the camera is a little bit too high, since this is a 2.0 millimeter lens, you might not get an accurate face capture. So you just have to make sure that your placement is correct with this. But with that being said, once you do have the correct placement, correct angles, everything is all good, You will be capturing faces accurately, and then, like I mentioned, in your NVRs, you can use that for recognition, for theft, and then also get notified whenever someone who was flagged, let's say you put them on a block list, whenever they come back into the store or the location where this camera is set up, the monitoring team would get notified of that person. They're back in the location. The second thing would be pedestrian and vehicle. So this one is pretty standard. We have all of our options here. For pedestrian and vehicle, you can set up your custom zones, your detection targets, sensitivity, all of that. Pretty simple. Everyone knows what human and vehicle detection is. Then we have our license plate detection. This one, I would say for this camera specifically, may be a little bit harder to do given that this is mostly placed indoors, but it does have that option for it. And then you can do line crossing and perimeter, loitering. So basically what we're saying here is even though this camera is very tiny and used for covert, you still can use all of our AI features depending on the scenario of where you're mounting it. And another thing we would like to cover is the audio function. So this camera does have an external audio microphone connection that you can connect your external mics to. And let's say you're using this camera, for example, in a drop-down ceiling. So the camera itself will be in the drop-down ceiling. However, if you're like in a retail store, for example, those drop-down ceilings may be too high for the microphone to pick up anything. So what you can do is just use a extended audio line, and you can basically route the microphone to wherever location you need it to be to pick up that specific audio. You can do that for the camera on any option, and then if you go into your video parameters, you can also adjust the audio output and input volume as well. This camera specifically doesn't have any speaker volume, so that one we don't have to worry about. We will just mainly focus on the input for the microphone. And then you also have all your other features like your arming, disarming, your general network settings, multi-user. You can create up to 7 users to access the camera individually, each with their own permissions. And then everything else is pretty standard, which everyone knows about. Another thing to mention is if we go into image control, it does have WDR. So again, for those areas where it may be a little bit too bright with those lights in retail stores, you can also enable WDR for this camera to balance out those light levels. And so that would cover today's live demonstration for the Pinhole camera, and we'll take it back to Austin for our Q&A session. And then Austin, we're back to you.
All right, that's what we want to cover today. Drop your questions in the chat, whether it's about the camera or if you got a specific scenario. We can help you decide if covert is the right approach. All right, let's go. Let's get those questions in. We're happy to answer anything that comes through. Yes, this is a 5 megapixel IP pinhole camera, correct. See that there. Is there any more questions we have here? Real small, by the way. Almost 1 inch by 1 inch. It's a pretty tiny unit that's very capable of a lot of great things, as you just seen. A lot of AI built in this small little tiny camera. Okay. All right.
Yeah, so this pinhole camera can be added to the NVR. There is an external RJ45 connector for your Ethernet cable, so you can either plug it directly into the NVR or you can have it on a switch and just add it through the IP address. And then also, again, this camera can work fully standalone. It does not have an SD card slot, so it won't be able to record, but all the AI, like I mentioned in the demo, can be fully functional just with the camera itself. So you do have the option, again, plug directly into the NVR or on a switch. Yeah, so this camera also does support OnVIF. So if you have your third-party NVRs, your UniView, Hikvision, Dahua, or any other brand that's out there, as long as that NVR does support OnVIF inputs, this camera is OnVIF compliant, and so you can use that. However, I would recommend setting up all the features first if you want to use NEI on the camera itself, and then you can add it through IP to the third-party NVR. And the other question that just came in on VIF, yes, this camera is on VIF compatible. So just like I mentioned, any brand NVR that you're using, as long as that supports on VIF cameras, like I mentioned, you can connect this to that NVR. And then again, just to note, you won't be able to configure any of the AI or advanced settings through that third-party NVR. So you will have to either pre-configure it or have it on a switch. This way you can access the camera settings directly.
Just one thing to mention too, the construction behind this is all full metal housing. So this is robust construction. This is not just a plastic housing, like we said. It's not a gadget. This is a commercial grade unit that's built to last. Just wanted to mention that. And any more questions, keep them coming. Again, about scenarios, maybe you're thinking if this will be a right fit, we can help you decide that. Or if you have any more questions about the product, then maybe how to use it. Yeah. Yeah, so example of use cases are like we said, we had a customer put this in like a deposition room where behavior can actually be influenced by a camera, right? So you need a pinhole camera that's hidden so the client or whoever doesn't get influenced by seeing the camera and changing their behavior because they know they're being watched. A covert camera can help you eliminate the visibility and allow for natural behavior to be watched and detected. A lot of times too, another use case is loss prevention. A lot of I've seen these used a lot of times in like retail environments, Walmart, Best Buy, where a lot of employee theft happens behind the actual retail store, and in a lot of employee rooms where there's not a lot of cameras there. Sometimes the break area can't be covered, whatever. So they need sometimes these covert cameras to watch some behavior behind the scenes, behind the retail environments where the employees are walking around. Because unfortunately, internal theft is a thing, and sometimes loss prevention managers need to capture that. Um, any other use cases you could think of, Zach?
Yeah, so this one it would also be similar to like retail. So we have seen some examples before. That we've also seen them online and on the news. Retail investigations for internal employees. Let's say, for example, in their money room, so where they count their cash. So if you have just a regular camera on top of the ceiling, the employee um, they may try to hide it in their own way, but if you're using like a pinhole camera, for example, where they're not able to see it, loss prevention and their internal investigation teams can actually monitor more efficiently with this. Because if the employee who's handling all of that cash, all their money bags, inventory, all of that, they are not aware that they're under surveillance, so they may act differently, like Austin has been mentioning. So really, this camera, as long as it stays hidden, you can really get how the person will truly act without them knowing that they're under surveillance, compared to just a regular standard camera like a turret or a dome that you typically see in the stores or at different locations.
Also, too, I want to note here the design of this camera is pretty unique because it has a little protrusion for the lens there. So this allows you to kind of drill a hole, like we said, and put the camera right behind there without the whole body being seen. You know, all you need is that little conical lens there to be pointed out. So you can drill a little hole in the false ceiling and the little wall, and then have this behind it sticking out just a tiny bit, so it's hardly visible at all. Okay, I'll wait for some more to come in here, and I think gonna wrap it up soon. All right. Well, thanks for tuning in. Hit that like button, subscribe, and tap that bell so you're never missing one of our Friday live streams. Take care, and we'll catch you next week. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in.